The war in Ukraine exposed many vulnerabilities for the US. On one hand, it banned all imports coming from Russia, including oil and gas. On the other hand, it did not take the risk of putting sanctions on one specific import material coming from Russia. This imported item could put the nail in the coffin of US energy production if sanctioned. And that specific material is the nuclear fuel. The US is the world's largest producer of nuclear power. However, it depends on Russia for 24% of its enriched uranium. This vulnerability has questioned the policies of the US. It seems the US has put itself in a position to bow to Russian nuclear power, hasn't it? Let's find out. For decades, the US and Russia locked horns on the global world order through their rivalry and dominance in almost every aspect. Both challenged each other on many fronts, including the development of nuclear arms, financial power, and hegemony. During the Cold War, the US and USSR had thousands of nuclear warheads to prop up their defenses against each other. But after the war, where would these warheads go? What was their purpose now that the war had ended? To minimize the risk of nuclear escalation in the future, Russia and the US signed a deal megatons to megawatts in 1993. It was aimed to convert Russia's 20,000 nuclear warheads into nuclear fuel plants. As per this deal, Russia recycled 500 metric tons of high-enriched uranium into 14,000 metric tons of low-enriched uranium. But all of this nuclear fuel was imported by the US to meet its energy requirements. Almost 20% of the electricity produced in the US comes from nuclear fuel. So during this tenure, the US imported nuclear fuel in heavy amounts and did not think of building its own nuclear enrichment facilities. At the same time, the Russian economy was unstable, and this deal revived their economic condition. Now the question arises, why did the US not bother to build its own uranium-enriched facilities? The answer is simple. The cost of setting up the whole nuclear reactor power plant is huge. Not only this, but the process of producing nuclear fuel is divided into many steps. These steps are mining, conversion, enrichment, and fabrication. Interestingly, the US gets most of its uranium ore from Kazakhstan and Canada, but Russia oversees the mining operations in Kazakhstan. That means there is one US-owned converter in the form of Canada and no US-owned stakeholder to enrich the nuclear reactors. Meanwhile, Russia possesses all these capabilities of mining, conversion, and the enrichment of nuclear reactors. So, according to some experts, Russia could leverage its energy resources as a source of weapons. That means if Russia cuts off the supply chains, then its client states can be diverted to Russian interests. Although nuclear fuel is considered a domestic energy and commercial issue, it still has profound impacts on foreign policy goals. So this potential vulnerability threatens the geopolitical significance of the US. Also, energy security is a national security issue and a threat to US sovereignty. Moreover, the continuous supply of nuclear fuel around the globe is not only a security issue, but also serves as a linchpin for US policies to counter the spread of the raw material for nuclear weapons. But let's see the other side of the coin. As the US imports 24% of uranium from Russia, a huge amount of annual revenue goes into Russian coffers. According to some reports, Russia received $1 billion annually after this 20-year deal. So all in all, Russia is controlling the nuclear value chain in the world. Adding to that, the Russian supply chain for nuclear energy poses many challenges to the US. First of all, the nuclear value chain is a testament to Russia's confidence in the nuclear market. That means the client states put their utmost confidence in Russia for their energy needs. Secondly, Russia is earning billions of dollars through enrichment facilities and the production of nuclear fuel. According to some reports, Russia's total nuclear exports rose from $1.6 billion to $3.1 billion between 2021 and 2023. Thirdly, these nuclear fuel exports keep the Russian war machine running. Russian nuclear exports nearly doubled in the last 2 years, and more than a third of these went to the US and France. It is interesting to mention that both of these countries are providing heavy military assistance to Ukraine. So indirectly, both the US and France are funding Russia enough to let it continue its war in Ukraine. Cherry on top, Russia has threatened NATO to use nuclear weapons if it expands beyond its borders. So Russia is playing with both hands. Firstly, by threatening the use of nuclear weapons while also being a partner in supplying nuclear fuel. Secondly, it has held Europe hostage with the threat of nuclear weapons after occupying Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia power plant. So for the whole West, the option of nuclear fuel is favorable, as many countries want to cut oil and gas emissions. But this has increased the dependence on Rosatom, Russia's state-owned nuclear power facility. France bought $324 million worth of Russian nuclear technology and announced plans to construct the most advanced nuclear program. Not only this, Turkey has increased its nuclear imports from $82 million to $200 million. This shows that countries want to make their national interests their utmost priority. That puts the US in trouble, because any US step to block countries from trading with Russia will not work anymore. That is a win-win situation for Russia. That is the reason the US is afraid of the emerging nuclear power of Russia. Besides that, according to some reports, a new nuclear war is on the horizon. A nuclear war between the three superpowers in the world: China, Russia, and the US. Some US officials claimed that Russia was developing a new space-based weapon that could threaten the world connected through satellites. The culmination of this nuclear war in space exposed the further weakening of the US. In February 2024, US politician Mike Turner warned of a serious national security threat. According to him, Russia is planning to build a nuclear weapon in space. After this, Russian President Vladimir Putin denied these US allegations that Russia was trying to build a nuclear weapon in space. That may not be true in some cases, but in a recent development, China and Russia are collaborating to build a nuclear power plant on the moon. Chinese and Russian officials signed an agreement to place a nuclear power unit on the moon in the years 2033-2035. The main purpose of this nuclear plant will be to provide energy to lunar operations, because it can provide tons of power in a small package. The intelligence sources claim that the purpose of this weapon is to destroy the commercial and government satellites of the US. Not only this, but this can also cripple communication by cell phones, paying bills and internet connectivity for US citizens. For Russia and China, this nuclear reactor will serve as the scientific base on the moon. It is evident that Russia has found the Achilles heel of the US in the form of nuclear fuel. So Russia could benefit from this situation and benefit from its stakes in the nuclear market. What are your thoughts about it? Do you think that the US is afraid of the nuclear power of Russia? Let us know in the comments section. For more such videos and hot topics, check out our next video and don't forget to subscribe.